This photo was taken on the 21st of December 1968. I wasn't around then, but thankfully, first photo of our planet from Moon. The last person to go to the Moon and step foot there was just a few years later in 1972, and I was a few months old when that happened. We have not been back since, and we have not made any efforts to go to any other planets. We do not have another planet. We have only this one. There is no other options. We need to save this one. The last astronaut to be on the Moon in 1972, Eugene Cernan, he etched on the Moon the initials of his daughter, just because humans like to shit on everything. We share this one planet. We have millions of species, and we are the steward of these species that share our amazing planet. As you know, in the recent news has been dreadful. The biodiversity panel identified that we're in a major extinction crisis. Over 1 million species are at imminent risk of extinction. We're also facing cataclysmic signals of ecological disaster from climate change and any number of other things. It really is important. But all of these studies have identified one thing, that the tropics, particularly rainforests, are exceptionally important towards our survival. They are the foundations of all life. And I don't have to tell you the medicine and the ecosystem services, the oxygen we breathe. One of the most important aspects of rainforests is that they are a massive air conditioning machine. They pump up vast quantities of humidity into the atmosphere that it goes around the planet, falls as rain. That cools our planet. That alone is extremely important. So when we lose our air conditioning machine, this planet will suffer even more. We know just the destruction of rainforests causes almost 1/5 of carbon emissions, of all carbon emissions. So together with that, we have really a major crisis on our hands. Just to give you an example, every day an area twice the size of San Francisco is destroyed. Tropical forest. So, a good question that Kevin gave to me last year. So what is actually left? What do we need to do? What are the solutions? So my science and conservation team ran some statistics, got a lot of information together, and it turns out that 76% of habitats in the tropics remain intact. This is terrestrial and excluding deserts. Of that, only 20% is actually protected. In other words, to give an example, of all tropical habitat, the majority is already destroyed. Only a tiny proportion is actually protected. The rest is largely in state hands and earmarked for things like logging, mining, agriculture. So what is the solution? What do we have to do to work towards saving our rainforests? I myself embarked on this crusade of saving rainforests. When I was 19, I led a series of expeditions to Colombia, and there I identified a number of really important places that needed protection, that were extremely important for biodiversity, for indigenous communities, that presented major opportunities for ecosystem services for cities and villages below these highland areas, and I embarked on a number of conservation initiatives. The early days were difficult in the sense that Colombia was struggling with a lot of internal crises, guerrilla, drugs, one thing and another. And of course, I confronted this, like everyone else in Colombia, with an AK-47. But of course, that wasn't the right way to do it. And I learned from my mistakes that actually the best way is to do it in conjunction with local communities. And then I purchased land with donors that was given to local communities to establish the first community nature reserve in Colombia, and is today still a success. But these areas now are just islands of rainforest in an area that is now largely deforested. So 11 years ago I started working with Rainforest Trust, where we celebrated our 30th anniversary last year. For 11 years I've been with them. We have doubled down on our mission of saving rainforests. That's it, simple, saving rainforest. How do we do this? I guess you could say our secret sauce, or our secret ingredients of how Rainforest Trust works is like how many of you also work. We work strictly through local partners and communities on the ground. We don't have any regional offices, we don't have any staff doing this. We identify people and organizations passionate that care about their environment, and we work to support them. And we focus on three main activities to establish protection of rainforest. In areas that are the last patches of habitat, they're not often in private hands, they're often in the most important hotspots on Earth, and they have critically endangered species. Where it's absolutely necessary, purchase land. Now there is an expensive way, approximately $100 to $500 an acre is roughly the cost that we're paying to save these last areas of habitat. The second way is designation, what we would know as like national parks, wildlife refuges, wildlife management areas. Those areas are much cheaper, it's typically state land, they do not have indigenous communities in them, but there's an opportunity for large landscape actions. And then thirdly, our indigenous land titling, which is by far the cheapest and most effective, and where we have been focused most of our effort in recent years. So, we are now presently working in 68 countries. We've protected already over 20 million acres and almost 30 million more in the works of being protected. And invested in the last 7 years over $110 million to our partners to do these actions. We saved over a third of mammals, and the majority of birds are found in these areas. That's all species on Earth. We've helped establish land rights for indigenous communities, hundreds of indigenous communities. And in summary of what we've done, in the last 5 years, we've saved an acre every 11 seconds. That's an area the size of San Francisco every 2 days. We are putting into permanent protection. Areas that would be lost are now saved. There is no plan B. We only have this one plan. We need to focus, double down on protecting. All actions for conservation are critical, and we all need to work together to make this happen. Our goal in the next 10 years is to try to increase that level of protection to 30%, and we're going to do it collectively in a partnership. Thank you very much.